Hi, Jennifer Stewart here, and I'm so excited to have with me today Lori Wildenberg as part of the iShine Bright series. And I wanted to introduce Lori a bit to everyone. So Lori is a mom of four, so she's got me beat there. I've only got three to challenge with. She's passionate about helping families build connections that last a lifetime. She's the co-founder of 1 Corinthians 13 Parenting Ministry, a lead mentor mom with Moms Together Facebook community, a national speaker, and a parent coach. Messy Parenting is Lori's fifth parenting book. That's a lot of writing. And for more information, you can go to her website, loriwildenberg.com. So how are you doing today, Lori?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Your wisdom is always so beautiful for parents. So I'm so appreciative of your time. And
well, thanks. Thanks for your heart for this too, because I think it's really huge.
Yeah. I definitely, I see a need. I so much pressure on parents, right, to be whatever society is telling them to be, and then is telling them that their kids need to be. It's so hard because, of course, every parent only wants the best for their child, right? They want to, whatever that means to them, they want to help them be the best. They want to provide them the best. But I think it's hard if there's always that constant noise, like to be able to listen to your heart.
Yes.
So yeah, so I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, what would you offer to parents that are dealing with that constant chatter from society or relatives or whatever it is, to be able to, take a step back and listen to their own guidance inside?
Oh, that's really a good question, because I think we end up getting really influenced by the people around us, right? In such a huge way. Even when we first even have a baby, right? It's like, oh, you're nursing, you're bottle feeding, you're making your own baby food, you're buying yours at the store, you're staying home, you're going to work. All these voices come in at us. And we tend to listen to those rather than perhaps talk with our spouse, or even think of, prior to having this child, what was it that I really thought would work out? And sometimes we discover, oh my gosh, all bets are off because this kid doesn't fit into the mold that I thought they would.
Yeah.
And other times it sort of helps us think, okay, it can kind of ground us if we take ourselves back to a different spot. But again, before you have children, totally, you have unrealistic expectations, right? And you always get a child you sort of didn't think you were going to have anyway. Right. So we want to parent to the children that God's given us. And I believe that we know, because we are so intimately involved with our kids, we really do know what they need, and try to avoid worrying so much about fitting into some sort of societal box wherever you happen to be at that moment.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you mentioned, our ideas of what it's going to be like to be a parent before we have kids, right? Because it's so true. Everything's going to be perfect. And, it's funny when you're, before you have children, you're out somewhere and there's kids behaving a certain way, and you're thinking what you would do, how you would make those kids, behave and listen. And then I think as a parent, yeah, we feel that pressure, other people looking at us. It's like, all right, you just wait until it's your turn, right? I mean, I know having like siblings and friends that didn't have kids, and they had lots of advice, right? And then I watched as they had their own children. It was like, they were like, oh, and then they're calling me, me for advice. Like,
exactly.
How do you handle this? It's like, but I thought you knew.
Yeah, I know. Nothing keeps us more humble than having kids. Sure. That's for sure.
Yes, they teach us so much, not only about how to parent, but about ourselves, right? We learn about our own triggers and about all sorts of stuff that we never even knew we had going on.
Yeah, I thought I would never have children that had temper tantrums, or especially in public. Well, forget that. And I remember thinking, I can't, because when we got to our third kiddo, I was still a little bit critical of parents where I would notice their child would be standing up in the stroller, and I'm thinking, get that kid to sit down. Well, then we had our third little person who was very slender, and she was so physically active, and she could just slip out of those restraints and stand up. And my heart would not be for her to stand up. That's very unsafe.
Yeah.
But here I was highly critical because I had two that were a little bit less, physical than the third. And, oh my goodness, or even the sleeping thing. You have all these expectations, and some of them can even come from the child you had before. You expect the next one to behave in the same way. So I think it's really important for us to even check our own voice. Like, okay, now this is what the first child needed, but is this really what the second one needs? So, and now my kiddos are all young adults, and we even have a little grandbaby.
Oh, congratulations.
So yeah, my son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, they have a little guy who as of today is 9 months old.
Yay.
So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I am very passionate about relationships that last a lifetime, family connections that last a lifetime, because that's right where I'm at.
Well, I mean, connections, that's what it's all about, having that relationship. And I think it's very hard. We have to, as you were saying, check our own expectations, because we can plan out like what we think would be the best life for our child, right? They're going to be really good at this instrument, and they're going to play this sport, and this is going to be their academic study. But I think it's tricky because that's not always what's in their heart. So, and
Exactly.
we want it out of love, of course.
Yes.
But that we need to be able to take a step back and really listen to our children. I don't know. Do you have any advice for how people can do that?
Boy, that is so good, because that voice in our head is so loud about, and it truly is often born out of love and a hope and a desire for the best for the child. But sometimes we forget the uniqueness of the child. And we need to remember to parent the child we have right in front of us, not the one that we have in our brain. And so I think that is one thing that is really important to look at that. And a lot of times when I speak to parent groups, we will talk about, a lot of times there's this vision that they don't realize they have that's sort of clouding how they're parenting. And that vision tends to be the thing that drives the behavior expectations of what we think our kids should do or shouldn't do. And so I'll say to them, why don't we do this? Let's figure out what it is you don't like, because that's always the thing. We can put our finger on that pretty quick. Mm-hmm. What don't you like? Well, I don't like it that my child won't wait in line or won't take a turn or seems to be selfish. Okay, so there we know what we don't like. So do we want a child, no matter what his skills and abilities and propensities are, do we want a child who is unselfish and who can perhaps be more patient and wait in line, or things like that? And so I encourage parents to, rather than the behavior really is the thing that helps us know what our kids actually need. Yeah. So yes, we've got to deal with the short-term behavior, but don't stop there. Extend it beyond into the character qualities that your child needs in order to grow. And that's where we're able to use that uniqueness, in a sense, and really listen to that parenting gut voice of, wow, this is a characteristic that is something that really needs to be developed, because this is what I'm seeing instead. So that's how we can parent to the uniqueness of the child and push some of those other voices out.
Yeah, no, I love that. You had so many good points there. So I love that you say, first of all, identify that problem. That's fine. And then take that as our clue as to what they need. What are they trying to develop? Is there something missing that they're not getting? and be able to tune into that and really get to know our child's needs and their unique abilities. So
Yes.
I definitely think that's very important, as opposed to saying, okay, let's focus on that, that this problem, and we're going to focus on that. Well, no, that's the clue. That's the outer thing
Yes.
that we're seeing. What's going on underneath that's causing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And two, just by paying attention, sometimes things change, right? Like there's one quality that you need to work on, and then you know, that's been pretty much addressed, and then you have to figure out, okay, what is something else? Because we're human beings, we're always changing and growing, and kids don't come out of the chute knowing what to do, right? Or how to act. We have to help them. That's our job. And to pay attention. So, I mean, even paying attention to things they like and they don't like. I made a mistake a number of years ago when my daughter was she was in middle school, and just maybe a year or two before, she was totally into horses. And so every year, when it was Christmas time, I would give each one of my kids a calendar, or Tom and I would give each one of our kids a calendar that reflected their interests. And so as she was, well, actually, she was maybe even a freshman in high school. And so for part of her Christmas present, she opened up her calendar with horses, beautiful horses all over it. She looks at me, rolls her eyes, and she said, "Horses again. I like beaches." So she got beach calendars following that the next year.
I love that. I love that. Yes, we have to stay in tune for sure. Our kids are always changing. I mean, they're growing. So that's to be expected. We don't want them to stay stagnant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're in this routine, right? And we miss it because we're not fully paying attention, because what has happened before and what we've done before worked.
Right.
And then things switch up. So in order to meet the needs and parent the child that we've been given, we have to really pay attention.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that you also mentioned, all right, so let's point out what we don't like, but then let's go ahead and focus on what we do want. Because I mean, that's really, we're going to get more of what we put our attention on. So if we spend all of our time focusing on the negative, then we're going to be getting more of that in the long run.
Yes. 100%. So that's why, and because we do know what we don't like, that's why we always say to ourselves, okay, what don't I like here?
Yeah.
And then you think, the selfishness. So then you've got to take it to the next level. So what do I want?
Right.
Unselfishness. And that's where you really focus.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think in general, let's find our child's talents and find where they can grow, and then focus on that, so we can keep encouraging more and more of that, because every child they want to be pleasing. They want to be amazing on the inside. And if we can help bring that out of them instead of always focusing on all their mistakes.
Yes.
I mean, my goodness, I make so many mistakes every day. If everybody focused on all of my mistakes, I'd feel horrible too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we, often, just because we're just trying to get through the day, so often we do just focus on correcting the behavior. Yeah. But that's short-sighted to only think of it like that, because we want to work on characteristics of the things that we want. And nobody is more qualified, nobody is more impactful or influential than a parent who is encouraging their child versus discouraging their child. And when we can really encourage our kiddos, in fact, I just put out a blog this week about 10 different encouragements that we can give our kids that aren't appearance or achievement related.
I love that.
We want to really focus on relationship and character qualities. Of course, the other things, we want to celebrate an achievement. That's important. I mean, that feels good to me. If, when my 5th book, The Messy Life of Parenting, came out, we had a little party, because that's fun, right? Yeah. So yes, you celebrate achievements, but yet that doesn't make you who you are. It's an accomplishment, and it feels good to celebrate yet you don't want to just focus on someone's achievements or their appearance, particularly when our kids are entering into those prepubescent and entering into puberty years. If they think that we are solely focusing on their appearance, that will end up backfiring, where even to the point of eating disorders and or exercise anorexia, these sort of things happen. So we've got to be pretty careful. And I remember when one of my kiddos she was only in 4th grade and very slim. And I saw her looking in the mirror and kind of with furrowed brows, kind of looking at her body like she wasn't happy with that. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's so young to be thinking of this. But the tween years have been pushed down now, where they're not really 10 and 11 and 12 anymore. Now we're talking 8, 9, and 10, which is really very heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's so important, is to focus on their internal development as opposed to their external achievements, because our society is, that's something that I see constantly. Our society is so focused upon what you do. What grade do you get? Did you score that a goal? What, are you in the first chair in your band? All of these things they're just things on the outside as opposed to the inside. And then it's so hard for a child to feel truly happy with who they are, because they're always striving for that next achievement to feel like a whole person, to feel important. So.
It's so funny. Our society is so interesting because you juxtapose the achievement, right? That you've got to be this, you've got to be involved in that, you have to be the best in everything you're in. And then we also have this other part where everybody gets an award just for showing up, and it's neither thing, right? It's neither thing. What we want is, yes, achievement's important, and we really do need to express, wow, you worked really hard at that, and you really earned that, and good for you, or you've got a natural skill in baseball. That's exciting. Those are good things.
Sure.
But also the other good things are the character qualities that could get you there, the perseverance and the hard work and the patience and the blood, sweat, and tears. All of those things are really important. But what you were speaking about with focusing so much on achievement, and then I think, the focus on appearance and even perhaps possessions and people that you might hang out with. All of those things have created, when you add that together with social media, this whole air of anxiety for children. And not just the kids, the parents too. And why do we do this to each other? Why don't we support rather than compete with one another? It's and putting our kids in a position of doing this all the time. What happens to cooperation and relationship when we continue to funnel things through that lens? It's not good, and we're doing a disservice to our children and creating this whole atmosphere of anxiety, which I think can be pretty detrimental.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think if you hang out anywhere on a campus or out on the sidelines of any sport activity, you'll hear that between the parents. And I don't know if, sometimes they might be doing it on purpose, but sometimes I think they're not. They're constantly sharing what their child has done, what their child has done, who's done, so that there's this constant competition amongst the adults, which then is going to trickle down to the children. And yes, then you lose that sense of cooperation, and let's all work together to see what we can accomplish as a cooperative group. Yes, they definitely, that gets lost by the wayside.
Oh, it's so hard too, because I'm just thinking it happens so early. Well, my child's walking, right? Right? It starts way back when they're babies.
Yeah.
And then, oh, well, we got into this particular preschool, or, we're shooting for that. Now we're going to go to this particular school. And, oh, my child got into this particular college. It goes on and on. Or my child is on the competitive team, or the traveling team. I mean, it's just like every stage, this is something that can be an issue unless your focus is different,
Right.
If your focus is more about building relationship and parenting to the child that you have, you're going to be able to free yourself and your kids from some of those things that could really start to haunt you.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that focusing on those other skills, those are more lifelong skills, right? Mm-hmm. That they're able to be resilient and they're able to try their hardest and overcome challenges and they're being able to be empathetic and kind and caring. Those are things that they can carry into any activity, any job, anything in their life. So if we focus on that as opposed to the end result, but what they did to get there and that they are trying their best. I mean, that's going to make such a bigger difference in their life in the long term.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And to have that emotional intelligence developed is a really important thing, because we're finding that kids today are less resilient. So that when it's kind of okay when they're under your roof, because you can help them through that or even rescue them. And so they don't notice it as much until they get to college. And that lack of resiliency in the college years and the young adult years, again, adds to the anxiety and even depression of kids. So we have to be careful to allow them to feel all the feels, right? Mad, sad, glad, and scared. All of those things they need to be able to feel. Or if they're not ever sad, as you mentioned, Jennifer, empathy. How would they ever have empathy for somebody if they never feel sad? They're going to be like, well, just get over it, right? If they've never made a mistake, they will never have compassion for the struggle that someone else might be going through. And, if they're never scared, if they never have an opportunity to conquer fear, where are they going to learn to be brave or even to stand up in a peer group situation and not do something out of peer pressure? So we need to stop protecting and start preparing our kids.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's one of the other things that is so hard as a parent. It's all right, you want everything perfect for your child. So you want to put this little bubble around them and protect them from everything. Mm-hmm. But I think, as you realize as a parent at some point that there's a line there of, yes, you want to be loving and you want to be there for them, but you want to let them go through these challenges, these safe challenges, especially as they're kids. It's better to go through things like that when they're not so big, and allow them to grow and develop through that. So I think it's so hard though, to figure out, like, hey, when you're a new parent, where is that line? I want to be there for them. I want to be loving, but at the same time, I know I need to let them go through life and work on these things.
So do we have time for a little example? Because You're just hitting on my heart right now. Do you have time for a little example?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So we make the mistake of parenting to independence rather than parenting for responsibility and interdependence.
Right.
And that's the key. If we instead parent, because we're in this Western culture, we think that our kids need to be independent. But I think what we mean to say is we mean for them to be responsible for their words and for their stuff and for their actions and how they interact with other people. That's what they need to be responsible for. But if we parent for them to be independent, then that means independent from us, an island unto yourself. And that's not ever a parent's heart, really. So what we want is that strong relationship, like you said, where you can come alongside somebody. And here's an example of how you can do that. That just brings it down to just every day. So let's say your kiddo spills. At our house, spillage was like a regular thing when we had 4 kids, 5 and under. It wasn't a meal till somebody spilled. Drove me crazy. And finally, I came up with something, and it really was perhaps to save the children because I was getting so nuts over this. So I started saying 3 lines, Jennifer. I started saying, that's okay. Everybody spills. I'll help you clean it up. And when I said, that's okay, that changed something in me. And it also communicated to my kids, Mom's not going to go crazy in the spills of life, right? She's not going to kill me just because I spilled my milk. She's not going to go nuts just because I crashed the car, you know? Yeah. So, okay, so that's okay. And then everybody spills, normalizes the mistake. Let's make these mistakes normal. Mistakes happen to everybody, and that's how we learn. And it's okay to be imperfect and a person who makes mistakes in our home. That helps our kids learn humility and grace at the same time. And I totally know that I want that in my home. That's okay. Everybody spills. Everybody crashes the car. I'll help you figure it out. I'll help you clean it up.
Yeah.
That's okay. Everybody spills. I'll help you clean it up. Now, if we were shooting solely for natural consequences and solely for independence, we'd say get a rag, which is appropriate. And sometimes that's what we need to do. You know, we're busy, and sometimes we can't enter into every single scenario. But if we can more often than not communicate, I'll help you clean it up, that lets the child know they're responsible, they're in charge of the cleaning up, but mom or dad will come alongside and help them. And oh my gosh, the most beautiful thing is when you say, that's okay, everybody spills, I'll help you clean it up. Then it changes the tone of the whole incident. Yeah. And the other very cool thing is that the siblings, the kids, when they hear this over and over and over again, after a while, when one of the other ones spills and you're not in the room, they'll say, that's okay, everybody spills, I'll help you clean it up. And isn't that what we want?
Yes.
That's healthy interdependence, not codependence, interdependence, relationship building.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love how it helps reduce the shame that you feel when you make a mistake, because I think shame is such a big thing, right? And then you're embarrassed, and then you feel defensive, and that would be a whole different tone. And it also is encouraging cooperation and empathy. Yes. So I love that. But you're also not like letting them off the hook. Like, that's okay. You go play over there. I'll clean it up.
Exactly. That would be codependence. That's exactly right. Yes.
No, I think that's beautiful. And that is going to teach them lifelong skills that can make a difference in our world, right? If we raise little kids that can go out, and do this with others and care about others. So one last question before we wrap this up. I wanted to ask you, so as we're learning to slow down and maybe not take on all this achievement so much and worry about all that and competition and who's doing what, how can we help our children be able to tune in to their own inner guidance for themselves? So now we've slowed down and we've listened to ourselves. How do we give them that tool or beginning?
You know, I think one way is to help them develop their conscience so that they're able to make good decisions, you know, regarding themselves. And in the messy life of parenting, I break it down into various phases of how to work with your kids at their different developmental stages. And I think that's like really, really helpful so that they move from being, you know, something in the infancy stage, for instance, they will look at life is good or bad according to how they feel. Like, I'm hungry, that's bad, right? So I cry, right? And then we move them to the next phase, like, you know, maybe hitting's bad because I get into trouble. So we don't want to get into trouble. So then they're thinking of responding to things externally, which is what you and I are talking about. We don't want them to do that. We want them to respond internally.
Right.
And so then the next thing is they sort of line up with their family. So and this is usually right, oh gosh, probably preschool to 7 years of age or so. So if you're able to start saying things like, this is how our family does this, and this is what our family values. Those are things that kids can hang their hats on. Like, our family values time together. So we don't always say yes to every single activity. And that will give them permission to say no because they have a reason for it. And then they move into the intermediate phase where, and this is the one a lot of us hear, well, that's not fair, right? Because they want everything to be exactly equal.
Right,
and
of course.
Right? And this is where we help our kids learn that equal and fairness are different things. So equal would be, let's say you're at the dentist and one person has a cavity. Then everybody gets a cavity filling because that's equal. So, right? So we don't really want equal, we want fair. And kids can start to understand that. So within your home, when you're playing a game and the 2-year-old's like all over the place, you can just say, well, that's 2-year-old rules. We won't worry about that, and we'll play by these rules, but we'll just let our 2-year-old do whatever, and that way the child can still be involved and it's fair, but it isn't equal.
Right.
And that really helps kids with their siblings, their younger siblings for sure. And then here's the toughest one, probably preteen to teen. Kids my age, always whatever, because they're really going back to their peer group. And so this is where we want to talk about, really what family values and morals and things like that, so that our kiddos are able to make good decisions for themselves.
Right.
In sometimes some tough circumstances. And you can even, I hate the word role play, but you can practice, you can practice some of these situations, like what would you do if? And, even the game Would You Rather can kind of give us some, good ideas as to where our kiddos are at. And that will help us develop their conscience and, and how they should respond to a particular situation, rather than feeling all of these external things.
Right. No, I love that. And I think, they're definitely born with a conscience, but I think sometimes they're so used to looking for the external praise and is what I'm doing okay? And they're constantly looking to us or the teacher or, whatever, as opposed to feeling that on the inside, which is, fine in certain situations, but to a point, then they're going to go out into the world and they're going to be looking at others, and the others that they're looking at might not always be giving them the correct feedback.
Yeah, that people pleasing can get in our way for sure. So that's why we have to go a little bit deeper, so that the conscience can get, as being a person of faith, so that for me it's lined up with the Holy Spirit, right? And that kind of thing. So our conscience needs to be developed, or the people pleasing or the peer pressure is something that will sway the conscience for sure.
Yeah.
But we each have one, but it needs to be developed.
Right. And learning to listen to it. And I think then that goes into being a parent, learning to listen to your own guidance, as opposed to what everybody else is saying that kids should be doing, or what all the kids on the street are doing. Right. If we can teach that to our children at a young age, that it's okay to listen to that inner voice inside themselves, and, that they have good guidance in there, if they can just tune into it and not listen to all the crazy chatter all the time. Then
I've heard it alluded to a compass. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a good idea, good way to describe it, and looking for the true north. And maybe that's something that is helpful to parents, and even in talking to their kiddos, that, here's our compass, our guidance system. So what's going to be our true north, and what's going to determine that? And I think that really helps kids kind of wrap their their brain around how to make a good decision. So.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that analogy. Well, I think we need to wrap it up here for time's sake. But I always like to ask, so if people want to come and learn more about you, Lori, and about your beautiful offerings and your resources, what's the best way for them to do that?
Thanks, Jennifer. So, yes, you can just go ahead and go to my blog, Lori Wildenberg, or blog/website, Lori, LORIWILDENBERG.com. And if you sign up for my blog, you get 2 free chapters from, and a lot of what we talked about today, even from the messy life of parenting. So, anyway, I think that's kind of a nice resource to have. It's really packed full of a lot of good stuff for moms and dads. So,
Yeah. No,
anyway,
that's
thank
beautiful.
you so much.
Yeah, no, and that way they can get a little taste of what it's about, and then if they like it, they can get the whole book and learn more
Yeah.
about all these tips. And that's great. So, well, thank you so much for your time today, Lori. I'm sure that the listeners will be able to take some of these tips and try them out in their daily life of parenting and see how it goes. So, thank you for your time.
Thanks for your heart for parents. It's really awesome. And
thank you.
Thank you for asking me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.